Hi guys, sorry about that. I had a bit of technical issues which we're trying to solve. But anyhow, so now that I am on, let's start the show. And as I said, I apologize. It has been a fantastic week. It's the first week in January back. I mean, it was wonderful, going out to work, all of that stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Here in Canada, it's a little cold, but I wouldn't say it's extremely cold. It's been pretty mild. What is happy to have a white Christmas. That part was good, but we plan to go through a few items today. So let me start. And as I said, buckle up. Grab a nice beverage if you want. But we're going to have some fun tonight because we're going to go through quite a few things, and I want to keep it positive because I do believe right now that there are negative things around, but there's some positive things out there, and I want to make sure that we cover the positive things that are out there, but also there are some negative things, and we'll cover those too. So let's start with something which it's borderline, right? So this week, this rapper Tay-K 47, young guy, he came out and he had a tweet. He said, you know um he's serving 55 years. Well, what happened was a few years ago in 2016, a young lady told him, "Hey, let's go rob her boyfriend." And he and I understand it was about eight of them went and robbed the boyfriend, and of course they were armed. Somehow, someone in the house got shot and killed, and then this became a murder invasion. And this was in Arlington, Texas. So in Texas they really throw the book at people. So they have sentenced him to 55 years. The girl that basically instigated it, she got 20 years, and she pleaded out because she became she worked for the prosecutors with this one. And some one person got life. Now he is complaining that he got 55 years. And if you read what he's saying, he said if he was a white kid, they wouldn't have given me 55 years for the crime. And he was talking about his insignificant role when he was 16 and all of that stuff. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about was this, because I have a 14-year-old son. um I This is my belief. Our greatest responsibility is to the community and to have safe communities. If we don't have safe communities, our children won't grow up properly into safe communities. I have a daughter and a son and a wife and two sisters, and mother and father, all of that stuff. We need a safe community. And if we have a community where people commit crimes like this and they're given lenient sentences and given probation and all that stuff, then we won't have a safe community anymore. So my thoughts on this is that this young man, he will get parole in 27 and a half years if he for good behavior. And the person that was killed because of their action it will spend an eternity in the land of the dead, a complete eternity in the land of the dead. And doing 27 and a half years on good behavior seems like a light punishment. But there's more to this story. You know, this is not his only crime. He also did another crime, because when he went on the run, he actually, well, alleged. Let's all say it's alleged. He allegedly shot and killed another man in San Antonio at a Chick-fil-A. Now, this is very important because even though he's in this 55-year sentence, he's actually going to go, from this prison to another case, which he could get more time. And then also, in May 2017, it's alleged that he attacked and robbed a 65-year-old man, and held a gun to his head. So this guy, he's definitely seems to have quite a few alleged crimes against him. Next one is that he was charged in prison with a prohibited item, which is a cell phone. And the funny thing is that he is tweeting from prison, so it seems somehow he may have a cell phone still. I don't know. But one of the things I wanted to say about this case was, you know, I do understand. I do have a son. I do feel sad when a young man, his life is wasted away. But I also have to understand that there's a community out there, and if people are being, doing dangerous things and being bad actors, no, I can't support it. So, he's lucky he only got 55 years, and that's just my thought on this one. So, and I wanted to cover this. Years ago, there's a song that came out by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. It's called "The Message." It's one of the most popular songs, and there is a verse in the song that covers this, and it's so strange that in 1982 this was thought of. The entire thing. A child is born with no state of mind, and it goes through. You grow in the ghetto. It goes exactly through all the things. You'll admire all the number book takers, the thugs and the pimps and the pushers. It goes through all of that stuff, all of it. Driving big cars, spending, and then it goes through. What you end up. You drop out of school. Then after that, you turn a stick up kid, and then you end up with an 8-year bid, which means going to prison. So this stuff is not new, and I don't understand why guys, 40 years later, even after people are highlighting it, they're still doing this stuff. And this young man has a very sad life, and his father was in prison most of his life, all of that stuff. So it's hard, but that's what the justice system is there for. It's there as a deterrent, and also for just desserts. You do the crime, you do the time, but there's also the fact that how do you deter others from going down this path? And probably that's why these sentences are this long. And as I said, those kids who got together with the adults, they put a man on the ground based on what they did. Anyhow, so moving on. So other topic is Damar Hamlin. Now this was a popular topic all week long. Monday Night Football. It was the Bills versus the Bengals, and Damar Hamlin. He got a hit and he was knocked out cold, completely cold. And then they tested him and his heart apparently stopped. They resuscitated him. What's good is that he has made, I wouldn't say a full recovery, but he's much better now. He actually had a tweet out there. He says, he actually felt good, putting love into the world comes back 3 times as much. Thankful for everyone who has reached out and prayed. This will make me stronger on the road to recovery. Keep praying for me. I'm very happy for him. And, he said, the love is felt and extremely real. No matter race, religion, everyone come together in prayer. This was really good. I'm happy for him that he actually, is feeling better. He's not out of the woods yet. One of the big things that came out of this was, should they have stopped the game completely? It was a very important game. And I agree with them. They should have stopped the game. I don't know how the players could have gone on mentally, knowing that one of their teammates, or even their opponents, but members of the league, could have potentially died on the spot. So they did stop it. There was a bit of controversy with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Sometimes I wonder if it's just for show. But the truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, I'm happy that he's feeling better, and he's not out of the woods yet. Definitely, he'll have a long way. I mean, his heart stopping on the field, that's nothing to play around with. So anyhow, happy that he's better. Wanted to chat a quick thing about Avatar. It hits $1.5 billion. I went to watch this with my family over the Christmas holidays. It was okay movie. I did a review on it with my wife, but it's okay. But what's good is that it hit 1.5. I want to see them make more. And in the political world now, you have the woke people and you have the anti-woke. I'm neither one of them. And the anti-woke people want this movie to fail. And I'm happy that it's doing well, because I'm not anti-woke. I'm not woke and I'm not anti-woke. I'm kind of middle ground. So happy that's there. It's not a great movie. I don't think it was a great movie, but hopefully the sequel, they'll fix it and make it a better movie. Now, moving on, Logan Paul, wanted to chat a little bit on this, because, I do watch a few of Coffeezilla's show. He normally exposes scams and all that stuff. And then I do listen to Logan Paul's podcast sometime, Implausible. And one thing I'll say is this: I don't know if this is a scam or not, but what it does look like, it's something that it's a bad project and all of that stuff. And Coffeezilla said it was a scam. Logan Paul responded that he's going to bring his attorney in it, all of that stuff. And later on, he came back and said no, he's going to try to make it right. Apparently, people lost money in this project. It was supposed to be some some, they're saying basically that this was something, it looked to me like a video game more than anything else, because fans could buy an NFT of an egg which hashes into an animal and assign levels of rarity, and basically animals could produce eggs and all that stuff. And to me, all of this stuff sounds weird, but this is the whole crypto NFT world, and something that, if you listen to me long enough, you know that I think this crypto world is a lot of gambling, a lot of speculation, and I think that a lot of this stuff, it's inadvisable. A lot of prominent people got themselves involved in this, FTX and promoting FTX, promoting these crypto stuff and all of that stuff. And Logan Paul, I'm sure he wished he never got involved in this and all of that. But we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I don't know enough. But Coffeezilla and him have reached, some level of agreement that they won't bring this before the courts, and I think he's trying to make it right, because I think a lot of people lost money and this project has been horrible, and he has a lot of investors in there. He said he hasn't sold any of his crypto tokens or whatever it is, and so let's see what happens next. But this one, is a discussion that's happening behind the scenes, as this could, people have lost money, and there could be legal implications for it. So let's see what happens there. Then I came across this, and this was very interesting. This was out in the New York Post. UK schools are grappling with teens brainwashed by Andrew Tate. Now, this is totally different. This is not basically talking about the court case with Andrew Tate. Like, that's a different case. But what's happening is that, a lot of the things that, Andrew Tate was teaching, the position of women, all of that stuff, and women are basically property and all of that. A lot of young people were a part of his school. I did a video on this. He stated that, almost 200,000 people were in his Hustlers University. And I did the math on it. It was about 65 to about 80 million a year he was making off this Hustlers University. And people were as young as 13 were a part of this Hustle University. $50 a month, $600 a year. And now a lot of these young people, they're talking, the teachers are talking to them. And as you can see in this South London school, they're talking to, a bunch of 14-year-olds. And they expressed a lot of, the misogynistic ideas that Andrew Tate had. So this is pretty widespread, and this is separate from the court case. This is more about the whole thing of, this ideology has been pushed to a lot of young people. And I always wondered who was following Andrew Tate, because as a man in my 40s, why would I follow someone who looks like a cartoon character? He looks like someone from a James Bond, like a James Bond villain or that. There's nothing about him that seemed real. And that was my big issue, that it just did not seem real. And, I was looking at something a few days ago, and I wanted to share it with you. And when I saw it, I said to myself, this lifestyle would have appealed, I understand, to a lot of people, no doubt about it. You look at this. This is a luxury house, all of this, resplendent stuff. And this is taken by one of his, they call her one of his alleged angels, Georgina Nagel. And so they're showing his house, how nice it is. And, there's a part where she actually shows one of the expensive cars that he has. And you have to understand, with young people, this is going to be something that attracts them to the whole thing, right? So, I can understand why this will attract a lot of people, but I think the older people, they know that, to come across something like this, you have to do well in business or something legitimate or that. If not, if it's shady, if it's something that is not above board, you're going to have legal issues as time goes on. But this is what was sold to these young men, that you can achieve this one day. And I could understand why they would be attracted to this lifestyle. So the teachers have, their hands full now. They have to figure out how to help these students, right? But anyhow, back to basically, what we were talking about. So they're trying to, I guess, challenge some of the ideas with these young guys. So let's see how that works out. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about the Chiefs. So the Chiefs today beat the Raiders, and they did something very weird today. They did something, I can't play it because of copyright, but they did something looking like Ring of Roses, where they ran in a circle and confused the Raiders defense. They actually pummeled the Raiders, and they actually clinched the playoff spot, and they're number one. for the Chiefs, and I won't stay long on this. I don't think they'll go to the Super Bowl. They have a fantastic offense, but it's not balanced. I don't think they have a good enough running game, and their defense is questionable. So let's see how they go. I'm a Chiefs fan, but still don't have a lot of faith right now, right? Wanted to chat a little bit about the Black Manosphere, and I wanted to talk about the fact that it's getting stale. And I did a community post on this, and I wanted to make sure that this community post was understood. I've listened to a lot of content. I've listened to content from Manosphere, from BW, a lot of different content. And one thing after listening to this content, maybe I started listening in July of 2021. And after listening to it, what I do notice is the content is stale. It's about the same thing. And one thing I can never understand, and it's something that, as a man, I don't fully understand. I don't understand why we as men will sit and talk about women all day long. And I thought that this picture was very reflective of this. A couple men sitting on a stoop talking about women all day long, about how horrible they are, and not looking at their own situations and seeing how they can improve it. And this is the part that I hope will happen over the next year. I think it's getting stale, and there are a lot of positive guys who are not manosphere. They're just men who are doing good content. I was watching something a few weeks ago, pocket watching with JT. I thought that's he's trying to talk in more about investments and that. I like Marquez. I like Marcus Brownlee. He does a lot of tech stuff. So you have some other guys who are doing positive things, but you still have a lot of folks who are on the left side still talking about negative things about women and all that stuff. I think the next step for the Manosphere is the 3.0, where they'll start to work with the women to figure out how to build safer communities and prosperous communities, because that's the end game. I think that's where it has to go. And if it doesn't go there, we're doing a disservice to everyone, right? Because we will need safe and prosperous communities to grow, right? And this nonsense of constantly arguing back and forth is nonsensical. I don't see why productive men, constantly talk about women. I just don't understand that. And I think that one day we'll figure that out, that it's nonsensical to do it. It's truly nonsensical to do it and truly unproductive. So I hope a lot of people move on from that. I wanted to chat a little bit about Waffle House Wendy. Now, she visited Tucker Carlson, and she basically came to fame because something happened in a Waffle House a few weeks ago. So well, it actually happened in September, but it didn't come to light until lately. And if you didn't remember the video, I'll show a bit of it. Basically, some folk came into the Waffle House. They were giving trouble. It was late. She said that it was like the graveyard shift. They wanted their food. They wanted to skip in line in front of other people. And basically, after a while, they started throwing chairs, doing all sorts of things. So as you can see, this woman climbed up there. But her famous thing was she actually caught a chair, and it's become a symbol. It's become a true symbol for a lot of people, and now she's there before Tucker Carlson, and she is like some hero out there. And I listened to her. She has a YouTube channel. I actually did listen to her. She sounds like a nice young lady and all that stuff. But seeing her make it to Tucker Carlson and all of that stuff, that was interesting. That was very interesting and all that stuff. As you can see, she caught that chair so expertly, and that's been her signature, right? Her signature is how she defended her Waffle House, caught the chair, and like an Avenger and all that stuff. But anyhow, good for her that she's getting all of this exposure and that. One funny thing about it also, though, is that it seems like some white nationalists were becoming attracted to her story. But if they listen to her well, she sounds like she's very close to the Black community. I mean, I listened to her, and if you didn't see her, you'd think she was a Black woman. So a lot of them, I think they're backed off of that, because she's just a normal person and who was in a bad situation. No need to attach those type of negative things to her. But some of the artwork on her is tremendous, though. Definitely, I could see a cartoon, I could see a comic strip being created on this. So very interesting, right? What the last thing I want to talk about, Ashanti, at 42 out here defeating the wall. I'm not going to post the picture. I'm not going to go on the pictures that Ashanti has on her Instagram, because some of them are really risque. But I'm very impressed because I used to listen to her as a young guy, and her with Ja Rule and all of that stuff. And very impressive that at 42 she still looks good, all of that stuff. Very impressive. Nice that she's keeping up herself. She's looking good, but she is slaying out a lot of thirst traps now there on her Instagram. And a lot of people are commenting. I saw something on I think it was the Shade Room. They're comparing her to Lori Harvey. Can you imagine that? A 42-year-old woman be compared to a 25-year-old woman. So, but she's taking care of herself, and that's good. It's nice to see people from your era, still taking care of themselves, doing what they need to do, and that. And, I applaud that. So, as I said, guys, I covered all my topics that I wanted to talk about. And tomorrow, I'm going to try to do something on stocks. I mean, we covered mainly, current items and things that, near and dear to my heart and all of that stuff. But tomorrow I'll talk about stocks and that. Covered quite a bit today, and take a time to go back over it because it was good. It was good. I think we covered up quite a few things today, and we'll keep these type of weekly shows, just to cover all the different things that are there. I think the main thing for me right now is that there's just so many things happening, but there is a bit of, I would say, a message out of most of these things. And I think the key thing out of the message is, there are positive things out there, and I want to focus on the positive things, but I also want to focus on the things that are helpful. I don't think that I'm teaching anyone anything or I'm helping anyone. I'm just interested in sharing ideas, and that's the purpose of this channel, to share ideas. And I don't mind you come in my comment section, you can rebut it, and that. I like those guys who come in and say who care. That's always a funny thing, because I like when someone takes time out of their busy day to write who cares on the something. So as I said, have a good day, and rest of your night and that. And tomorrow I plan to come back and talk a little bit about stocks, but this is really just a coverage of current items, all of that stuff. And it's always fun to do these and cover quite a few, I think I covered quite a bit of ground with this one. So until the next time, guys, if you like the video, please like, and if you're not subscribed, guys, and you like the general content, please subscribe. Thanks, guys.